Hello, good people. Welcome. Bad people, welcome. Medium people, welcome. Anyone who wanna learn more about SEO, welcome. Because today we are going to discuss more about securing your SEO, protect online presence. I'm so excited to discuss this topic with Jess Joyce. How are you?
I'm good, thanks, Anatoly. Thanks for having me. This is so fun.
Yeah, big pleasure. Wanna learn more about SEO? We chatted a little bit, and I know every single day we can learn something new. Jess, before we start, just tell more about yourself, experience, background, and anything that can help our listeners to learn more about you.
Sure. So my name is Jess Joyce. I'm an SEO consultant these days, but I've worked in-house and agency for probably about 10 to 15 years before. I used to be a developer, front-end developer, and migrated into the marketing side because I kept getting pulled in that direction. So I've worked in-house in that regards to this talk. I worked for a VPN for a short amount of time, which was really where I started my security hardcore experience because my first week the CEO sat us down and scared us with I'm not sure how much of it is true, honestly, but he was telling us that things come out of the TV and they can like watch you and things, so like very Black Mirror stuff, right? But I
Mhm.
learned a lot in that role from security and how important it is. So even in my consulting now, my favorite clients that I work with are in the security space. And anybody who talks about data and securing and anything that goes along those lines. And I've worked with a few of them throughout my time that I've been lucky enough to. So I'm just love spending my time helping people get more secure on the internet.
Nice, awesome, awesome. Yeah, love it, love it. And what I found that SEO specialists usually start with something else. For example, you started with development. I know great SEOs who started with writing,
Right.
design, So and it impacts to your priorities because I see when people have the background to create websites, they usually pay attention to technical SEO optimization. Jess, can you tell about your priorities? Because SEO is huge. For me, I don't know a teeny percent of SEO methods. I understand them, but if I compare my skills with great experts, for example, Lily Ray, she can beat me in one side about EEAT when she shared this checklist how to optimize with this parameter. I got it. Wow, I need to learn a lot. By the way, I asked her, can you film a short video about EEAT? And she told me she doesn't know how to do it, how to
Right.
share in 50 minutes video about this parameter. It's only one parameter. We have many others. For example, Jeff Coyle can beat my site, about advanced content strategy. Mike Phillips is great with sharing about customers. So, Jess, tell about your strong side, about technical optimization, how it's important, what kind of tools do you use, and your priorities when you check out websites with technical optimization.
Sure. You're totally right. Yeah, Lily Ray, she did a great talk on the weekend. I watched it live, was the SEO on the beach, and she was talking about all the SGE stuff that she's going through. It was insanely insightful. So I recommend everybody watches that. And my priorities usually start with technical. So I usually try to get access to the site, and then my favorite tool of the internet is Screaming Frog still. I still will 100% pay the SEO tax, as we call it, every year, and re up my Screaming Frog subscription because it just helps in every way. Even a project that I'm working on after we record this is just a redirect project, right? I say just to minimize it, but it's not really. It's a site that's moving from Volusion to Shopify. And they have over 5,000 products on their store. So that's not a small amount of things that they need to redirect. And the URL structures are completely different between those two houses between them, right? So they want to make sure, because they're just a small business that's trying to make a living, they want to make sure that as much traffic as is going to their Volusion site will make it to their Shopify site. So I'm trying to do my best to match up everything with the other SEO that I work with, who's wonderful as well. And we're trying to make sure that they try to lose as little traffic as possible in the switch, right? So we're just going through and doing QA and matching up all the redirects and doing that. And Screaming Frog is my favorite thing to do that with. Um,
Mm-hmm.
it just makes
Nice.
things so much better. But you're right. Everything in SEO can be a niche within a niche within a niche, which is really helpful. Like my friend Dave is the schema master, right? Like he's hopefully listening somewhere out there. So everybody has their expertise, and learning that even within SEO is really helpful, because then you can reach out to other SEOs to get help as you go along through your universe, right?
Sometimes I can feel that I'm jack of all trades because, I usually learn about everything in SEO, but, I usually do it because I manage SEO specialists,
Right.
experts, and yeah, my strong side management. I usually cooperate with great experts to create high quality content, to analyze my customers' websites, but I understand how it works. For example, when I started PR, I failed all the times writing press releases, pitching them. Then I hired great specialists who can write press releases to create something new, valuable, newsworthy. Then I hired another specialist who can pitch them, to the right journalists. I know the process, I know tools, but it takes time and experience to be effective, productive
Totally.
with that. And we got mentions on CNN, we got Forbes and other links because of having the right process. But if I do
Yes.
myself, I fail 100%. Just I wanna ask you about checking big websites. You mentioned that you use Screaming Frog, but some websites have million pages. It's hard
Yep.
to check all of them, and even if you get audit for million pages, it's hard to fix them. So, can you tell about grouping? I mean, like many websites have similar pages, for example, product page, catalog, anything. So, can you tell the method how to scroll websites with million pages and to choose priorities on that?
Sure. I usually take as long as I have access to Search Console, then that's usually the best way to like see where Google's going and what they're doing. Because it's always nice to ask for crawl data, but like what developer is actually going to give you that at the end of the day, especially if you're on like a Shopify or anything. That's not something that I usually like to argue for. So I'll just go into Search Console and I'll start filtering through what the biggest pages are that Google's crawling, and then I can put that into Screaming Frog or Sitebulb. I like Sitebulb too, especially for the larger sites. You could also run Screaming Frog on like an AWS instance, so it'll help you with offloading that plain sound that we all experience using Screaming Frog, that it
Yeah.
sounds like our computer is going to take off when you're scrolling those big giant sites. Especially if you're running them in the cloud on Screaming Frog, or you're running Sitebulb, you can schedule crawls through Sitebulb, and then you could schedule them to go at night, and then you don't have to worry about like taking up all your time during the day, and you can prioritize and deal with the management side like you deal with, Anatoly, and go on and sit in meetings and
Yeah.
talk with more wonderful SEOs instead.
Yeah. Nice. Okay, just let's talk about security. I had this issue with my projects 2 times, by the way. The first time that was in 2013. I lost entire business on that because my website was hacked, and hackers did this job, a good job, because I couldn't recover my, my website for 10
Oh,
days. And they did it in Christmas days when we had a lot of sales. And in most cases, we usually sold like, we had, I don't remember exactly the numbers, but we got sales like for 3 4 months for a few days, a lot of sales. But and 10 days we couldn't recover our website. So we got this
jeez.
store, and yeah, that was good experience. I lost this business, but after that I got the experience. It's important to prevent before treatment, and for example, according to some studies, people are not willing to pay $1 for prevention, but they will pay $1,000 for treatment. I know from personal experience about that. So, and the second time I got the same issue when my WordPress website was hacked. That was in 2018, and we spent like 3 months to recover from these hacking attacks because all antivirus tools didn't show problems. Google Search Console didn't show that. But yeah, we found manually, we check out almost all pages, we recovered the previous version, we compare them.
Good.
And what's interesting about this hacking attack that this virus changed settings in some plugins that we couldn't find for some time, and many pages were no followed, or we had some backlinks to Japanese, Chinese websites, something like this. But yeah, we did it for 3 months, and after that I pay regularly for prevention tools, antiviruses. So can you tell about how it's important? Okay, I shared my examples. Share your examples and how to secure your SEO results.
So, the things that I like to talk about is from like a high level. So most of us are logging in through a Google account, in some way, shape, or form. And Google actually gives you security tools that you can double check on your account. I think that's the first place that I think everyone should make sure that they're secure on, right?
Mhm.
Like you're using an email. We used an email to set up this meeting, so we need to secure that from the get-go, right? Like, and Google gives you the tools to do that. So you can set up two-factor authentication, you can set up an extra code to get access to it, and then you need to make sure that your password is secure. I think the days are long gone of using the words password 123. Like you said, people won't pay for teachings and listening. So hopefully people are listening to me because I'm not like a boring dude who's sitting in front of you.
Yeah.
But making sure that your password isn't something that's like password 123 is super, super, super important. I don't use that stuff anymore. I use a password manager. This is
Mhm.
not sold. I'm not selling you anything, but look for a password manager. I use one called One Password, and I upload my entire brain to the password manager. So I don't know one password of any site that I use to log in now. I upload it all to my password manager, and then I don't have to think about it. Each password is unique. It's at least 20 characters long. It has letters, numbers. I don't know what they are. So
Mhm.
even if somebody was going to like sit me down in a chair and try to like get access to things, they wouldn't be able to because I don't remember them. And then for those hackers out there, I've read that it takes like 8 hours plus to like crack those because it has eight to 20 characters. So in those WordPress instances, especially, it's more healthy to have a longer password and have one that you don't know, and that it's different from your email. It's different from like another website that you work on. It's different from 6 other websites that you work on. But I've had those WordPress things too. I actually spent a weekend rebuilding a website because it got hacked, which sucks. So it's always good to back up your website wherever you are. There's wonderful hosting companies out there who are not owned by like the giant HostGator kind of companies that are out there. I think Kinsta is a really good one. I believe they're still just owned by normal humans that you can talk to. Make sure that you can talk to a human at wherever you're hosting your WordPress site. I know it's cheaper to go with like the HostGators or the GoDaddies or whatever, but at the end of the day, you're not going to be able to talk to somebody and they're not going to care about you at the end of the day. So make sure that your website is hosted somewhere where you can speak to somebody, and make sure that you're running backups constantly on your website. And then number two for WordPress, make sure you're logging in and you update all of your plugins. Like you said, right? Your plugins got like weird backdoored into there. So make sure that you're constantly updating it. Make sure you're auditing the plugins that you have in there too. I tweeted something out yesterday and it kind of went viral, which is nuts. I didn't expect it to, but it's a picture of a fire hydrant with all these attachments added to it, which I said was like WordPress once you add all the plugins that you need on it, which is essentially what WordPress is, right? Like you're adding all this nonsense stuff to it that you really don't need at the end of the day. So make sure that you're auditing the amount of things that go in there. And then the other problem that I've had with WordPress is audit the people who are accessing your WordPress too. because those people are where the big kicker comes in, right? I'm a consultant, so if my agreement ends with you, take me out of your website. You don't need me in there anymore, right? As much as it might hurt my ego a little bit at the end of the day, and it makes me sad because I enjoy working with my clients, take me out of your website. Make sure you go through and take people out of your Google Search Console. Make sure you go through and take people out of your Google Analytics. I've been added to Google Analytics where the first thing I do is I'm like, do you need Joe? Do you need Anatoly? Do you need Jimmy? Do you need whoever these people are? And we'll go through and take everybody out of there, which I find is really helpful. And most people don't do. Same with Search Console.
Yeah.
You'd be surprised about how many times you get access to Search Console or Google Analytics and that there's 600 other people left in there. And they're like, I don't know who's in there anymore. I'm like, well, you should know because they have access to your data right now.
Yeah, nice, nice. You mentioned that you consult your clients, and
Yes.
I wanna ask your way how you do it because I found that many customers don't implement most of recommendations. It's not only in my case. Many great SEO experts share on Twitter that only 40% are implemented. Basically, for example, if a client pays like $10,000, they implement for $4,000, 6,000 are wasted. So can you tell about simplifying this experience of communication with clients to tell them it's important, let's do it, let's find resources, time, anything about that?
Sure. So most of my engagements start with an audit of some sort. So whether or not we're signing up for an audit or like some sort of time that we're all working together. Just like you take your car in to get service, right? They have to look at your car, just like the same thing. We have to look at your website. So we need to be able to get the lay of the land to understand what's going on before we start implementing things. So there needs to be some sort of checking process to be able to understand where we're going to do and to prioritize things. Um, and then so I do that a lot, and that has been the kicker into helping me either stay on as implementation once the audit is done, or um, if they have internal resources, then they're able to implement it. Um, I've been lucky for the most part, is not everybody implements everything because there's a lot of different variables that always come along with those. But um, my favorite is I sent a technical audit and everything was implemented within 48 hours, which I could not believe. Still to this day, is they're a wonderful company out there, and I will probably never experience that again. But
Mhm.
they implemented all of my technical suggestions within 48 hours, which was pretty cool.
Nice, nice. And can you tell about choosing critical errors? For example, when I open Google Search Console, Screaming Frog, I get a lot of errors, and
Mm.
sometimes it confuses what you need to fix, where to go. And I often see when webmasters fix less critical errors, ignoring critical errors. So, any tips how to find something that impacts results and what you can ignore?
Sure. The biggest thing that I'm ignoring lately, which I probably shouldn't, but maybe I will, is the video indexing. Is Google keeps flagging all these video indexing things. Like if you have a video on your page, and then they're flagging like video indexing. But I feel like that's not as cut and dry as it is because they're not very clear on what's wrong with the video indexing. So you can play around with it and like move the video up in the page. Sometimes that works, or move it down in the page, or add a transcript. All these things that'll happen. But that one's not as clear, so I've been kind of putting that a bit lower these days. The highest thing that I usually like to deal with as far as technical SEO is broken links. Is if anything is broken within your site, it's always good to fix it. The best one that I found was a client had a staging site that was under their main domain, and they had a PDF that was uploaded to their staging site, and it had like 16,000 links to it externally. So we just redirected that guy back to the main site and got all that value back of it. It was like this nice little boost of like, oh, great. You don't have to go to a staging site. You need to go to the real site. This is where we're getting the information. This is where you download the PDF. Congratulations. Let's go off to the races. So Not and it takes, I think, somebody with a critical eye and knowing the CMSs, knowing WordPress's like URL structure to know that you don't have to worry about like the Atom URLs or the RSS URLs. I usually just like let Google crawl that stuff, and I'm not going to redirect that kind of things,
Mhm.
because these are the low level systems of the internet, right? Like I'm not going to I'm not going to turn them off. But understanding what pages could have value to somebody's bottom line is the difference. Like that PDF was going to help them on their bottom line because it's a PDF that they were downloading, that leads were looking for. So that was like something that I would definitely prioritize at the top of the audit.
Mm-hmm. Nice, nice. Love it, love it. Jess, we have the question from Yash, and he's going to create a normal portal of web application. So the main question is about WordPress. Is it a good idea to use WordPress, for a future website? Because you mentioned about WordPress, and it's popular. Plus, I don't remember exactly, like 40 or 30 percent of all websites are on WordPress. So, any tips about using WordPress, and give the tips to Yash?
Sure. Yeah. I think WordPress is a great platform to use. But just like every other CMS on the internet, it comes with like drawbacks, right? The drawbacks being like your exactly example, Anatoly, is your website got hacked. So you
Yeah.
need to make sure that there's a few things that are involved in WordPress because it is the largest CMS on the internet. It also has that large visibility and it has a lot of things that people need to keep track of. So I would say if you're going to go with WordPress, make sure that you have somebody who's going to check it and do the things that I mentioned a little earlier for it, for security, and make sure somebody's updating the plugins and make sure somebody's trained on WordPress. But that's like every other, it's making the decision is I'd want to find out who are the stakeholders who are going to manage your website and are going to keep it up to date, whether or not that's WordPress, whether or not you're using a custom CMS, whether or not you're using Webflow, Shopify or whatever you're using.
Mm-hmm.
Make sure you understand that and make sure the stakeholders will continually keep that up to date, and that the people who are managing it are the people who will be managing it, and you're managing those users because security wise, right, you don't want 600 users in your website.
Yeah, I remember when we started one project in unrecognizable CMS. That was hard, to change web developers because our first web developers couldn't do it, but we couldn't find another who can do it. So, so that's why I usually recommend to take popular CMS that you can
Yes,
manage, because you can find people who can implement new things. And on WordPress, in most cases, we have a bunch of plugins, including
totally.
antiviruses that I ignored
Yeah,
before. So yeah,
I've worked on those other projects where they were like, oh, we're going to find a developer and it's on this weird language that only like 1% of humans on the earth even use. And I'm like, how
yeah,
are you going to find a developer who's going to do this? Let's just migrate it to something else. And then you can scale it because everybody wants to scale, right? Better, faster,
yeah,
stronger indexer.
yeah.
But yeah, like if you're using something like WordPress at the moment, right? Like Google knows how to index it, the rest of the web knows how to index it. As long as you're using like standard plugins, the Yoasts or the rank maths of the
Yeah.
world and all those things, then you'll as long as your content is enough and then you listen to Lily Ray talk about EIT, then you should be off to the races, right?
Yeah, yeah. By the way, it's interesting that WordPress has open code, so it's possible to manage many things that you can't on Shopify, Wix, other platforms. But we got some limitations by creating simple tools, because it's our part of our strategy to create calculations, converters, many things we can do. And yeah, in WordPress it's hard. It's possible you can, but the speed is not good, and we can't optimize with the speed. That's why we separate WordPress from some pages, and yeah, it works well as well. So because of this
Totally.
flexibility, yeah, you can.
Yeah.
And just I want to ask you about errors that appeal from nowhere. I don't know how they appeal. For example, you might audit, you fix these errors, but in the next audit you got new errors, a lot of them. Can you tell how they appeal, and how often do we need to check out website to find these errors?
It's a great question, actually. I like to do them quarterly. I have a couple clients that I do quarterly audits with, just as like a maintenance check, because they all have internal marketing teams, and people are obviously shipping things to go better, faster, stronger, right? We all want to rank higher and do things, and doing that requires you to constantly update things and refresh things. So I do run quarterly audits, but errors come up all the time. So if I do stay on, I have lovely clients who still leave me in their search console if we're continuing and doing a project. So I'll get alerted to anything, and then I run things in Ahrefs still as well. I run site audits in Ahrefs just to keep up on these things, because I do have a couple clients that are like purely technical, and that we sit in calls with their developers and talk about Jira all day, which is kind of no fun, but it is for these guys. Um, but yeah, Jira is a whole other beast in itself. So and you have to speak a certain way, like you Anatoly, you talk to like business people all day. I get to talk to developers all day. So it's a different type of learning. But yeah, errors are the things that you need to like get buy-in on and make sure that are fixed throughout the site. And hopefully you don't have a lot of them. Hopefully you, especially in something like WordPress, I've dealt with like those Japanese hacks that like do the search query string hacks that people like, they put in all the queries and then all those pages get indexed, and then they get indexed like thousands and thousands of pages. So
Mhm.
those are fun.
Yeah,
So
nice, nice.
you're always on call if something like that happens. But as otherwise I like to do things quarterly.
Hmm. Yash wanna know more. Yeah, he
Oh,
asked
cool.
to clarify more. So can you read his question? And probably it's some personalization. I don't know. So
Yeah, he wants to create a normal portal kind of application. Use case portal should platform CRUD operations to show some records of data. Right. The traffic will surely, at least to start. So the doubt is, can I use WordPress? I would, if you know proper web development, I would use proper web development over WordPress or something like this, because you're reading things from files, right?
mhm,
But there are some other CMSs out there that actually do this really well. Webflow has like database management within it, like from the get-go without even trying. So if you're not development handy and you don't want to deal with APIs and pulling things in from databases, like you say, um, then I would start with something like Webflow.
mhm.
Otherwise, I would say, yeah, go with your own custom code if you're comfortable with something like Python, and then you could spit it out to HTML and JavaScript. That would be my suggestion.
Nice, love it, love it. Jess, let's talk about something that I often do in digital marketing, about mistakes. I often do a lot of mistakes, but I can learn how to adapt, how to go ahead, or how to find someone who can decide my problems, because I can't create high quality content without the right help. So that's why I cooperate with many great marketers. Can you list mistakes that you can see that companies still do, and your tips how to find another way?
I'll give you one example that I've seen lately. Is I'm working with a wonderful company who got literally ripped off. Um, we spent a good 6-8 months building out this SEO strategy and have built followed like the SaaS playbook of stuff, right? Like SaaS is a very specific vertical, and software as a server, that whole stuff that people make. And there's like a playbook in SEO to follow for doing those kinds of things. And we've built out all those pages, and they're doing wonderful. And it's serving the client well enough to do that. But as of a couple weeks ago, we found out that they've been completely ripped off. So I think that's a mistake. I think, in my opinion, the mistake is their strategy. They didn't have one. So they were like, our strategy is ripping off somebody else. So that's a huge mistake I see. Um, Number two, I see is not linking to your most valuable assets as close to the homepage as possible. Um, it's not really like an SEO-y thing, but if you want to send traffic to your most valuable assets, like if you have this wonderful blog post where you've written the best 100 ways to like help your website, and that's the one that's getting traffic, link it to as close to your homepage as possible, because that's where Google's crawling, right? I think it's a great idea to just move that stuff to as close to the top as possible. So those are the big mistakes that I see. The other one I think is and I hate saying this, but is going for the flashy stuff over doing just like the basics out of the gate. So just like making sure that you have your keywords where you want to put them, or at least having a keyword in your page and focusing on these things. Um, eh, and I understand because I work with large organizations, it's like SEO versus brand versus like designers. So at least being open to the conversation is,
Yeah.
is a mistake that I see. Is I understand you're a designer and things need to look beautiful, and I respect you 100% for that. But can I tell you how a search engine works? And can we not make it an image at the end of the day? Because
Yeah.
I think that regardless of where we're going with search engines, they still need to be able to read at the end of the day.
Nice, nice. We got a comment from Dre. He has SEO video
Hi,
show. So
Dre.
Dre, you can invite Jess. You can see a lot of valuable insights, to your awesome video show. And just I wanna ask about AI. You mentioned a little bit about AI, and I had great conversation with Jeff Coyle. He's co-founder of Market Muse, and he shares great lesson in my SEO course about creating advanced content strategy. He told me that in the future we'll have three companies. The first company will develop AI, the second company will implement AI, and the third company will be obsolete. Just leave the trade to your competitors. Just, I want to know how you implement or develop AI, and how are you going to go deeper on this field?
Sure. I think this is changing daily at this point. So please take what I'm saying with a grain of salt, as my answer in a week will probably change. But for now, I'm testing it out with refreshing content. Um,
Hmm.
is a big one that I'm using it for. Is I don't use it for like straight out writing because I think there's a lot of value in writers, and I work with like an online news publication who I very much appreciate and love. and and one of my longest friends is also a journalist, so like I respect that they know words because I'm not as good with words as they are. But I do like it for refreshing things or to finding gaps within my own content or the content that we're looking to write. So I'll use it to find gaps that other people might have, that we're missing out on, especially in filling out the whole topic. If we're looking at the whole topic, right? So, which headings are we missing? Which subsections are we missing within our topics? And then I saw a great video from Will Reynolds this morning about using a ChatGPT extension for interlinking. So I'm going to test that one
Mm.
out as well, which would be kind of cool. And how he uses it to question the AI and double check his information so that it's not hallucinating.
Yeah.
So he's actually using it to like check it because I don't want to trust everything that's coming out of an AI. I have trust issues as we're talking about security. So
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah.
I love using AI. It's interesting that I used AI before ChatGPT. Right now, I can use a lot more. And I usually use editing my content. For example, if I write bad copy but with valuable insights, I can ask ChatGPT, please edit and create something great, because
Yeah.
AI can simplify, to fix grammar errors, to translate to different languages. Yeah, I love using this tool, but I don't generate content with AI. Probably you can find great prompts, but I couldn't do it. I still think that human touch is important, but we'll see, because it's only beginning of AI journey. I think AI will surprise a lot.
I think
And
so too.
yeah, just I found that I usually get high ranking positions with customers who understand SEO. If they understand, then we can cooperate together. We can understand why we need to create high quality content, what kind of content to create, how to submit call to action, how to provide white hat link building PR, many things. So we can speak one language. But if they don't, I tell them, take my course, learn from Lily Ray, Jeff Coyle. It costs $20. It's not my business model to earn money on this course, but you can learn the basic. Go to YouTube, go to Google. It doesn't matter. Just learn. Find your live informant.
Totally.
When you understand the basic, you can hire great specialists. And I usually do it as well. I usually start myself everything in SEO. After failing, I understand the process. I can cooperate with great experts. So let's imagine you started today from scratch without any experience, knowledge, skills. It's your first day in SEO. What will you do today to learn more about SEO?
Um, Honestly, I would go back and just do like an HTML and CSS course, truly.
Mhm.
And then I would learn how to write content, and then I would go to like take content writing. Because I'm not the best content writer. I still am not. It's something that I'm constantly working on. But I would take HTML, CSS, and then I would learn how to write good content. I don't think those three things have changed in the entirety of the internet, even from like way back when we were writing live journals and dead journals and Tumblrs, and making sure that you can write out content is a skill. And I think that's a skill that some people have more than others. I think it's evolving as we move into like the video and audio space as we're doing, right? Like this is a new level of it. But I think those HTML, CSS, and writing is still the foundation of everything.
I like how you highlight this word still because the future
Yeah.
can change everything. My loving, yeah, my loving
Dang.
book. Oh, Dave? Yeah, we got.
Yeah.
Okay, let me share my loving book from Jack London. It's called Martin Eden, about a guy who
Oh,
didn't have any experience, knowledge, anything. He didn't have even education, school education, but he could overcome many great writers because they work hard, to change this attitude, to overcome others. And if you still you can be much better than many others, just because for me content creation, you can improve the process with consistency. It's acquired. It's not like you got because of getting the right I don't know, the right from your mom or dad. Yeah, because you
right.
can acquire the skills. And we have the question from Dave. How do we get a hold of Jess Joyce? I don't see a link to her website in the description. Thanks. Oh, Dave, you can find all links to LinkedIn, to website, everything in the podcast episode. I'll share them. You can find on my website, on Apple, Spotify, Google, everywhere. I promise you.
Also, Dave is one of the foremost people on schema. So if you need something done, speaking of people who are niche, he was the one I was referring to earlier. He is a
Oh,
fantastic schema human. So if you're talking about entities, which I think is the future of the internet as well, that's something that I talk to Dave a lot about entities and schema. He's a fantastic human.
nice, nice. Dave, if you have time, I invite you to speak on my podcast, to share the skills because my audience needs the skills, they want to learn more about schema. It's important. And just my final question about the future. I want to ask you, take your crystal ball and let us know about the future because my crystal ball doesn't work. I tried a few times when I bought crypto, when I bought other assets. I failed. So, oh, you have it. Nice, nice. Let us know about the future in ASIO because many things are coming. Apple introduced this headset now and augmented reality. I don't know how it can change the world. AI we have today, it's not the future's present, but it's only beginning. Many things will come. So, your prediction and forecast about the future.
Okay, so I think unfortunately the future of the internet is scraping everything because that's what AI is doing. So I think we're feeding the giants at the moment. I don't know what that's going to mean beyond that, but we're feeding everything in a way. The internet's being scraped by Google, Bing, all these other like low level things that are happening, but it's being scraped by like OpenAI too, right? So now people are trying to block that stuff, but I don't think it's useful. Is The walled gardens of the internet are still gonna sell off our information to somewhere. This is my like terrible way of thinking about the internet, but I think I think I think it's all just gonna be scraped, and everything's gonna be regurgitated. So as SEOs, that specific content that we're talking about and having your own perspective on something, having the human perspective and having the human experience is going to be more and more important when following trends and trying to catch those trends and stay up on them. I saw one of my aha moments in search was when Bernard from ClearScope was talking about keeping your content up to date with trends and how you need to update it to follow like Google Trends, right? So you need to keep up with whatever's changed, right? Like if you're talking about the Oscars um before the Oscars are on TV, and you're also talking about the Oscars after they're on TV, that's a completely different perspective, right? So I've been applying that to my content and to trying to tell my clients. And then I think that's the game changer, is just to make sure that you're topically relevant, but that you add in as much humanity as you can to combat the AI tools that are going to be scraping the internet and regurgitating things or hallucinating things, as we've seen.
Nice, nice. Yeah, I love Bernard. He spoke 2 times on my podcast. A lot of
Yeah.
valuable insights. I love him. And Jess, I love you. A big pleasure to get on my show, to learn from you. You lead me to an emergency room. I need to spend time to consume all this information, data,
Oh,
to think
jeez.
how I can adapt. Tell our audience the best way how to keep learning from you, how to reach out to you, how to follow you.
You can go to my website, it's jessjoyce.com, or I'm on Twitter, as much as whatever Twitter ends up being for the next little while. I'm also on LinkedIn. I don't try to post much lately, but like we can always have a chat. Yeah, so those are my lovely places on the internet as of now.
Okay, guys, you can find all the links, as I promised, in the description below to this podcast. Listen us on Apple, Google, Spotify. Thanks again for your time. Love it. So valuable.
Thank you,
You know, you're
Anatoly.
you're so kind to share all this value. So I'm going to implement. And guys, remember, learning is nothing if you do nothing. You need to implement. You need to practice, because we have short memory. We can forget about something new for a few days. I can forget for a few hours. Just tell me. But if you implement, if you practice, then results will come. Okay, love you. See you.